Welcome to the Andy Beshear Podcast. Folks, this is our 51st episode. That's right. Next week, we'll mark 1 year of the Andy Beshear Podcast. Remember, you can download us wherever you get your podcasts or on the Sirius XM app. You can also listen to us on the Progress channel on Sirius every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. We have a great episode for you. We're taking a little bit of a break here in Season 2 from our Prime for 2026, and we're sitting down with young professionals all in their 20s to talk about their hopes, their dreams, to talk about whether the American dream is still attainable for them, to talk about their feelings on the level of division in this country. We're going to talk to small business owners. We're going to talk to people who are trying to make a difference in their community. We're going to talk to a teacher and an engineer. This is one where, you know what, we sit back and we listen to the challenges that are out there for this really important demographic. Then I have my conversation with the Johns, and it's been a heavy couple weeks of news. We talk about the war with Iran. We talk about the State of the Union. We talk about how there's actually some really good economic news right now in Kentucky that hopefully lifts everybody up. And yes, they asked me about Go and Do Likewise, my new book that's available for pre-order. This is a really interesting and I think insightful episode. I hope you like it. This week, we're starting the Andy Beshear Podcast with 2 conversations with young professionals. We want to know how they feel about the American dream, their concerns about division in this country, what makes them hopeful, what makes them worry. Because in my job, we talk a lot, but it's just as important to listen. So this first segment will be John Rabinowitz and I. Second segment will be John McConnell. We've got a lot to learn, so let's get to it. Thank you all for joining the podcast.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.
Glad to be here.
If we can begin, if you'll introduce yourself to our listeners, just tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I'll get started. My name is Andy Beshear. I was born in East Africa and immigrated to the U.S. In the early 2000s. Lived in Louisville for a couple of years where I attended the University of Louisville. Go Cards. Did my undergrad there and grad school as well. And now I'm currently teaching middle school math, trying to, build up the next generation, teaching them how to be critical thinkers.
Good for you.
Awesome. And I'm Karina Henson. I'm from Lexington. Then I went to U of L for college. I studied civil engineering. And now I work for Louisville Metropolitan Sewer District as an engineer there.
I want to start with the American dream. You hear a lot of people talking about it right now, but you all are right at that time in your life where you're probably thinking about it, trying to live it, wondering what it means at this time. So let's start with, what does the American dream mean to you?
Well, I think for me, growing up in Africa, you hear a lot about the U.S. and this is the land of opportunity. So coming here and being able to be given those opportunities was a blessing. So a little bit of that can kind of conflict what I think about the American dream, because if you come from a third world country, anything small seems really, really impressive to you. But after spending some time here in the U.S. and I'm seeing people my age and even a little bit older than me going after some very strong opportunities, it kind of moves that goalpost for me. But then the reality hits. You graduate college, applying for jobs, you get into the career that you desire to be in, but you get that first paycheck and you're looking at the bills and thinking about, man, is this really the dream that I thought, and the dream that I really wanted to go after?
I resonate with what you're saying about kind of it seeming very big, but then kind of in reality, you also just want to be able to take care of yourself and your family and feel stable. But yeah, like growing up feeling like there's so much potential and kind of anything is possible, and balancing those. Yeah.
So the buzzword is affordability. And I'm worried that's getting a little political sciencey because it's this one word that covers a whole bunch of concerns and maybe even struggle. What's the one bill each month that worries you the most?
Rent.
Right.
Rent does it. I think for a lot of us, in our 20s and early 30s, we think about uh, purchasing a home because that's one of the things that fall into that American dream, being a homeowner. But when you look at our peers and looking at some of us can't even afford to start that home buying process. We're constantly told, hey, you need to invest in a home that's going to bring something back to you. Stop paying rent every single month. But the reality is, you look at some interest rates, you look at the price for homes and how much is just gone up. It's almost unattainable. So,
Are most of your friends renting or have they purchased their first home?
so I'm at the age where it's half and half. Some of them are purchasing, but I think most of them pretty much are renting, and it's really because the down payments, the mortgage, everything is just so expensive. It feels like we're kind of stuck in that place.
What's the one bill for you? And you can't say your water sewer because you were an engineer.
But
At
yeah, I know what
that-
that all goes into. I would say maybe groceries, seeing groceries increase, especially like since I started buying my own groceries to now, and adjusting to that is
Yeah.
still shocking.
what hits you in the supermarket the most?
Hmm. I feel like maybe meat,
Mhm.
and I've been buying less meat and trying to switch to more vegetarian food anyway, but
Yeah.
that's definitely driving those choices as well.
And as you all look at these costs going up, what do you think the reasons are?
A lot of times we just there's so much that goes on that you feel like there's no control. You have no control in that, and you question yourself: is it locally? Is it at the state level? Is it at the federal level? So it's difficult to be able to see that from just the consumer side of things. But I know I track all my spendings, and every time I look at the monthly spending for groceries, I'm just shocked. I'm thinking, am I really eating that much, or is our groceries really that high?
You track it in an
Yeah.
app or on a spreadsheet?
On an app, I just wish
I wish you would been my kid's sixth grade teacher.
Yeah, I do. I track it, and it gets scary at times to just look at some of those numbers. A quick trip to the grocery store to Kroger might cost you $200, and you're looking at the groceries that you purchased, and you're confused. So it gets challenging there.
Have your dreams changed over the last few years from even when you were in college to now? Have you had to modify those dreams? Are there things that you thought you could accomplish, but now you're worried you might not be able to accomplish besides the home ownership?
Hmm. I think when I graduated college, going into the education field, I was a believer, and I believe that I have the power to really make a big difference in every student's lives. But the reality is you're gonna work. You're working a lot of hours. Sometimes you still have to think about the financial side of things. So you deal with some of those things, the personal things as well, and you feel like, how much do I have to invest in this future generation when it's difficult for me to invest in myself right now currently. So to kind of answer your question, yeah, it kind of does shift a little bit because you're thinking about priorities and what do I really focus on? Do I focus on making that impact, or do I focus on trying to build myself up financially so that I'm not struggling?
Which,
don't.
which you shouldn't have to choose between, but we don't pay our teachers nearly enough.
So
Yeah,
true.
absolutely.
But I've been trying.
Yeah.
Karina, when you think about what gives you hope, all right, we talk a lot about the stress. What are you excited about?
Um, I think one thing I'm excited about is seeing how communities are coming together to lift each other up and to work together. And something we were talking about, something that we love about Kentucky is the people here.
Yeah.
And I think you see that everywhere you go. People are, I mean, even through the difficulties, there are great teachers who are trying to make a difference in people's lives. And there are people in communities who want to do positive things for people.
So if you were in charge, let's say, of it all, and you could do one thing that would help people in the 20-something range, what would it be?
I think a lot of times, as people our age group, we we're presented with so much from the media, a lot of political things, and it's easy to feel defeated when you feel like you have no control in any of that. So I think
The news makes you feel that way, right?
absolutely, yeah, you can't escape it. Anywhere you look, you have something is going on here in this part of the world, this part of the country. So it's difficult to escape that. But I think if I was to give advice to anybody around our age group, just think about what you can do with your character. What can you do so that you're staying focused? What can you do to help with your mental health? Because you can't really grow with trying to control things that are outside of your range. The beautiful thing is to just have that voice and speak to the people who can make those changes, and hope that they remain on your side to make those changes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
How, Karina, how do most of your friends get their news?
I think a lot of people get it through social media,
Yeah.
Instagram or TikTok,
A-
mostly.
And does it in there? I mean, at both TikTok and Instagram, you're not going to get a very long video.
Right.
And so it's the idea that that's what grabs your attention, and then you go look for something else?
I think so. I think at least for me personally, I try and get my news also from like newspapers and sources that have articles. Because I think especially social media really it's very emotional and it's very attention grabbing, and so
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to get a full picture or a very hopeful picture just from that. So yeah.
Yeah. Because they're just trying to push something that will gain
Get-
some views and
Yeah.
that. So it gets scary. And to kind of go back to people our age group, I think it's easy for us to really compare what success is. A lot of times you look on social media, people your age group are flying to Dubai, they're going to different parts of the world.
Fake success. Fit the picture at the right time, and
Yeah. So you start to question, "Man, am I doing this thing right? Am I doing this adult thing right?" Because you're looking at your bills, you're looking at how much you're bringing in, and you're kind of questioning how are they able to do some of this. So social media can really kind of corrupt your thinking in that way.
And we were talking about earlier, we talked about how family was so important to both of you guys. And it
Yeah.
kind of kept you grounded, kept you in state here. But we talked a little bit about the future of, we were talking, John and I, with you guys about our kids.
Yeah.
And we talked about, I asked, does anyone have kids yet? And I think the response was, we want to get there,
Yeah.
but we're worried we wouldn't be able to afford it.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So talk a little bit to that.
Yeah.
Think.
Yeah, I also am not in a place where I could have kids at all right now, but I think thinking about the affordability of it, talking to my coworkers and thinking about how much childcare costs, and if you wanted to keep working and have a kid, the factors that go into that, and then medical situation, just all of the things that add up. It's so much, and yeah.
Yeah. So we had a big group of foster care parents, and many of them had fostered and weren't continuing to. And we asked them, what's the number one reason? What's the number one stress? And of all the things, they said healthcare.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and both the affordability and the accessibility. And while we've been expanding that, you think about Norton West Louisville, you think about U of L Bullitt County, you think about the things we've done with Saney's and in Northern Kentucky. A lot of that is really at risk right now with nationally funding being cut by $1 trillion+.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's scary, because people, it's their kids. That's the priority. A lot of people just focus on that. The other piece too is because I'm an educator, so I work with a lot of these kids, and you just see that the disconnect, and there's really no trust in some of the education system at times. And as an educator, I will always, when I get opportunities like this, is just asking for, in order to retain the teachers in the school, so that we can continue to have some of those teachers who really do care and want to develop kids who can become the group that changes the world in the future. How can we as educators continue to feel that trust from the people responsible for, say, our retirement plans, knowing that the promises are kept, that our retirement plans won't be cut into later on?
I had to go to court to prevent that from happening several years ago. And there was a version of the budget that the House introduced, which would have significantly increased your healthcare costs.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we've got that now out of it. It wasn't in my proposed, but just one piece of legislation could add crushing costs.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
So what do you do to feel in control?
that's a
I'm asking for a friend here.
that's a good question. I think we know our group are really strong. A lot of times we're looked down by some of the older guys saying, "Oh, your generation is not doing things the right way."
I remember.
Right, but I feel like every generation does have its struggles, but I think our group we're doing a pretty good job, especially in the economy, the way things are. We're really fighting. We're fighting. We're trying to use our voice to really make a change, and I really do appreciate that. I think that's a step when we can continue to use our voice to look for those changes that we're hoping to get. That's hope. That's
Yeah,
hope.
we comment all the time. We can't imagine growing up in this generation. That's, again, dates us.
Chick,
Yeah.
tell us your thoughts on social media. Net positive, net negative. How does it hit you on a daily or a weekly basis?
I've been trying to use it less and less. I think there are definitely a lot of positive things. I think it can connect people and show you different perspectives that you wouldn't otherwise, meet people who
Yeah.
share those. But I think also, talking about the comparison, I think it's hard sometimes. And I think also sometimes it can really isolate you from people that are here with you in person.
Yeah.
Stories you can hear from people directly and really make a connection with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are some really good things about social media as well. I know I spent a few moments ago talking down on social media, but I think that could also be used as a platform for sharing some of the ideas that we have. Those might be the only ways for us to reach out to some of those lawmakers, some of the people that we need to reach out to. I think just thinking about back in 2018, I believe, with the Senate bill, I think 151 for teacher retirement, a lot of you'll see a lot of the protests with the teachers through the media, and you know that your voice is really going out there, and in some way it will reach out to the people who can help out in that way. So social media does have its downside to it, but it does also help to get your voice.
And for the listeners, that was when our state legislature turned a 7-page sewer bill into a 150-page bill that would eliminate the promised retirements of every teacher, police officer, firefighter, social worker, every state, city, county official. 10,000 teachers marched on the Capitol. I was there. It was incredible to see. It is the only 10,000 person rally where if one person holds up their hand, everybody goes quiet. It was the best behaved rally I think we'd ever seen.
Yeah.
10,000 rules followers. You know what? They did it to him anyways, but it wasn't constitutional.
Right.
And thankfully, we had an attorney general who's now a governor that was able to go to court and get it stopped.
Now, guys, speaking of the governor, not many people have an opportunity to sit here and have a dialogue with the governor. Are there any questions as young professionals you might have for the governor?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, as an educator, I just speak from the point of what can we do to really improve some of the scores that we see, especially in math. Being a math teacher, I will always advocate for math and things that we can do to improve that area, and the reading scores as well. What can we do from an early on stage, from the elementary school level, so that we can see more effort put into educating our kids, because they are the future.
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is fund pre-K.
Absolutely.
And we got half of our kids showing up for kindergarten not ready.
Behind.
So not enough words, don't know their colors. I talked to one kindergarten teacher who had 5 students that weren't potty trained.
Wow.
How in the world is she supposed to run a classroom if that's the case? We have enough money to do it just out of sports betting revenue. We use lottery proceeds for college scholarships. How about using sports betting for pre-K? It would solve some of the childcare issues for childcare deserts in eastern and western Kentucky. But if we've got kids that are walking into public school for the first time in their life and they're already behind, some will never catch up, and you can't blame that on the public education system.
When you were starting out in your career, did you ever see yourself being governor? And then do you have any advice for us?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
never intended to run for office when I was growing up. I thought that was what I was supposed to do. And so when I was in high school or junior high, I ran for everything and I lost every time. I remember in KYA, Kentucky Youth Association and Youth Assembly, I ran for lieutenant governor. There were 3 of us. I came in third. If I could have come in fourth, I probably would have. But I was, again, running because that's what my dad had done and not because I had that driving reason. And so we always talk on this podcast about your why. And in any part of your career, I think finding out the why, not just what you're going to do, but why you want to do it. It helps you deal with the difficulty. It helps you push through that tough bill. It helps you push through that tough day. And if your purpose can meld with your occupation, I think you can find mission in life. And especially if it's helping other people out, it's worth a lot because it's a really stressful world right now. It's a really stressful job for me, but I get to get up every day in this chaotic world and just try to do something about it.
Yeah. And I can appreciate that why aspect, because a lot of times, again, going back to the social media, we're so driven by how much money we can get, but the real reason behind that is, how many people can I impact, how many lives can I impact. So that'd be really good.
At the end of the day, do you feel like you made a difference?
Absolutely, yeah. Man, it's great advice. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us today. You're listening to the Andy Beshear Podcast and our conversations this week with 20-somethings about division, about the American dream, about hopes and fears in this crazy world we're living in right now. So we've got John McConnell subbing in for John Rabinowitz. And for our next 2 panelists, if you will, please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. David Echeverria, a young professional based out of Louisville, Kentucky, owner of Village E Sports and Entertainment, as well as DSC Solutions. And yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, hello everyone. I am Saren Bentley, also a Louisville native, 26 years old. I am Associate of Impact at Cities United, and I also have my own LLC, Saren Bentley LLC. And I am the founder of the Prom Just Drive and Pop-Up Shop.
So just a few things.
Yeah, just a few things.
So I actually want to start. You all both have small businesses. Tell us about both the opportunities and the challenges of being a 20-something with a small business or a few.
So for me, I spent the last 2 years as a full-time entrepreneur. It's a little rough because I kind of just jumped in head first. I was working full-time, decided I no longer wanted to do that. And I was like, I want to start my own business. Like I want to do social media and community work full-time. And my fiance was like, go for it. And so I jumped into it head first. I was not prepared.
None of us are.
At all. I think they make it sound a lot easier than it is. But it's also been very fruitful. And so in terms of challenges for me, just a little bit of reflection and realizing that I probably needed a nonprofit and not an LLC for where I've taken my business and the opportunities that I have. But then also being 26 and being able to say that I have my own business.
You got a lot of pride in that?
Yeah, I do. I do have a lot of pride in that. So yeah, that's how it's been for me.
David?
Yeah, no, likewise, definitely plenty of opportunities, but also, plenty of things that have crossed paths and had to, come encounter with. One of the great things about having a small business or small businesses is being able to be flexible and try and do different things. I think one of the beautiful things about I'm 25 now, but I started my first business at 21 was being able to try different things and go different places, meet new people, and learn a lot. I think that's one of the things as a small business owner is you're always learning. You're always able to try new things, especially in today's day and age. There's a lot of access to education and different tools to learn more. But it doesn't come with its challenges too, having to identify what is it that I actually want to do. Because I think the vision I had at 21 is a lot different than now at almost 26.
Yeah, right. You're both into gaming and into politics.
Yes. A lot of people would not see any overlap between those two things. And I don't, those are two of my passions.
Yes.
And so at first it seemed like a very divided line between the two. But as things have developed and as I've had a lot of conversation with people around the country, things do overlap. And, had our first city contract on the gaming and esports side this past year. So
It's
I had
exciting.
to navigate. It's exciting, but also I had to navigate being a city vendor, and all the paperwork comes with that, which is good. Like it was a new opportunity to learn and navigate that space. But yeah, it's an exciting time to innovate and be a leader in that.
So given you all own your own small businesses, you're the boss. Where do you go to for advice?
Mentors. I've been very, very blessed with great mentors in my life. Whether it's, growing up, my dad was definitely one of my mentors. He was also a public school teacher and
I still get to ask my dad questions.
yeah. And then upon graduation, being able to find mentorship out of the state even, and being able to see what they do in other parts of the country, being able to take some of that knowledge and experience back here to Kentucky, and yeah, being able to also be by their side as someone who's very young at the time and continuing to be in that way, but also being able to see the challenges that they go through and the way they handle those things. I think there's nothing more beneficial than having a mentor, whether you're a small business owner or not, but definitely in that respect.
Yeah, same for me. It's definitely been the mentors, but then also the other people my age that have their own businesses. So being able to kind of lean on each other for the things that you thought were going to go the way that they have, and the things that, have kind of been like a wrench thrown in there. It's just been nice to be able to have that community of young professionals to be able to lean on as well.
I think that's important because the idea of a mentor or support doesn't always mean somebody that's older.
Yeah.
Right? It means those people around you. So with one of you doing political consulting and the other doing advocacy work,
Mhm.
tell us your thoughts on the state of politics.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the sigh starts it all.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of noise right now in a lot of ways. Not completely negative, because there's a lot of things going on, and I think and part of the previous conversation was around how we utilize social media and other tools at our disposal. But I'd also think there's a lot of negative noise as far as mis and disinformation and being able to understand what's true, what isn't true. AI content is now flooding a lot of spaces, and I think that complicates the discussion around politics a lot. I think the flow of information that a lot of folks are experiencing is now becoming muddy waters in a lot of ways, and so there's a constant source of division when it comes to social media algorithms and the way that we're having those conversations, whether it be in person or online, because even though the online content floods into the in-person conversations in a lot of ways too. And so there's a lot of education that constantly has to happen. And so I think that's really where I would say is the state of our politics there's a strong need for education, whether it's from the very basic civic lessons to, the news that we see each and every night.
So facts need to exist.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think we're looking at no succession planning. I think a lot of the people that we have in office now fought so long to get there that they're kind of holding on to that space, right? And instead of inviting in young leaders and people, and maybe not as young as us, and I mean, still, I think we're at the prime age to be getting into some of these spaces, but then also people who, are in that 30 to 40 space as well. We're not looking at people who have thought about who's going to come after them, and how do we sustain some of this stuff, and then how do we also change and make sure that there are things for people, to have when you leave. I think right now we're looking at a state of, we're going to just swing from the chandelier, and whatever sticks, and not really thinking about the people that are living through it now, but then like what are the repercussions of this, as we continue on. So I think that's where we are right now. And like David said, education is so important, and just being able to block out that noise, because it's so easy to listen to the news and the social media and all of that and let it muddy your mental, and let you slow you down from the process that you're in, the path that you're on. So learning how to compartmentalize that, right? Like not allowing yourself to not be educated, but then also not allowing that to just overtake your mental.
So if your generation was in charge right now, how do you think things would be different?
A whole lot different.
Yeah, definitely different. Not sure it'd all be better. I'm not gonna put that kind of pressure on us, but I do think that I would like to think that things would be a little less complicated if we were, all on one accord.
I think they'd be less confrontational.
I think there'd be a bit more compassion.
I think
I think that's something that a lot of us are craving at the moment.
Yeah.
Is compassion and empathy. I think that a lot of that comes from, part of it might come from social media, the fact that we're able to see more stories of people that aren't necessarily, ones that look like us or are coming from the same kind of background. But also we're experiencing things consistently that are challenging us in a lot of ways. The very fabric of what this country is built on, like a lot of these things are being challenged each and every day. Our civic experience from growing up in from the early 2000s to now, then 2016 on has been quite an experience. So I would like to think that things would be a little more cohesive, but there'd also be hopefully more accountability. I think that's what a lot of us really are also craving is having those clear conversations about what should be happening and what isn't happening that is impacting us, each and every day.
So that's so interesting to me. The idea that we need to have clear conversations and not sound bites. Yet social media almost only lifts up and allows that sound bite.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the problem we find too in this age of social media and content and the one of the reasons why there is so much misinformation and attention grabbing content is because of the fact that folks are relying on it for money, for one. The fact that you're able to monetize content, monetize attention. We live in an attention economy. That's one of the reasons why I do think the gaming and entertainment space is so, important right now is how are we making sure that we are grabbing people's attention, bringing them in, but then having those clear and concise conversations as well, because we understand people's attention spans. But yeah, we have to make sure that it's still being intentional and that we are making the most of people's time because, we can't, hold them hostage all the time with having those educational conversations.
Well, when you talk about small business ownership and the age that you are right now, when you start to talk about and look at the American dream, how do you define that and how does it make you feel?
I think the idea that I had of the American dream as a child is drastically different. So like I was in elementary school when Barack Obama became president, right? And so like as a young Black girl, that's like you are always taught like that would never happen, like having a Black president is a never. And also as a young Black woman having to have that realization and sit with all of the feelings and emotions that came behind the last election cycle. But the American dream now seems like what they call it, a dream. Like it doesn't ever seem that it was something that was obtainable to the average person. I remember when I was in middle school and I did an interview with a refugee. He was actually a lost boy. And I asked him, like, what was your idea of America? Like when you came, what did you think that you were going to get? And he was like, oh, I thought when I got here at the airport, somebody was going to hand me like a wad of cash and like say, like, welcome to America. And it was just going to be like this, peaches and cream. And I was like, wow, because, at the time, like we're coming off of Trayvon Martin's murder and all of those things. And so just thinking about even then, like how vastly different what his idea was from where we are. And I don't think that gap has closed any. And I honestly, if anything, it's widened. I feel more so as though like the American dream is far away from at least what they described it as, right? But I also take that opportunity for us to redefine what the American dream is. And for me, it's about community. It's about being able to have that compassion and that empathy. And we always talk about like, government's not coming to save us. So how do we save ourselves? How do we arm ourselves with the tools and the knowledge that you need to be able to, live comfortably and safely as well. So I think for me, like, that is what seems more attainable of like, how do I create that community? How do I uplift the community? And how do I contribute in some way that helps not only just me, but, others in my community as well.
Yeah, I've always believed that government's never going to ride in on the horse with the answers. But if it's listening to community leaders, there's opportunities to act intentionally. Do you all feel heard?
It depends on who's listening.
Okay.
I would say it depends on who's listening. I think a lot of times as young leaders and young professionals, people want you in the room to check a box, to say that you were here, that you were at the table, that we brought you into the conversation. But never so that they're going to use what you've brought to the table to make change. It wasn't until my work with Cities United that I started feeling like somebody's listening, and they are using young leader voices to push some of this work forward. But yeah, what about you, David? You think somebody's listening? You think we're being heard?
Listening, but it's less about the listening. It's more about the action afterwards. A lot of times, I've had many conversations over the years where I feel valued in the moment and I feel heard. And I'm like, oh, this is like a great idea. This is something that'd be very impactful. But then the lack of support afterwards to help make that vision happen is sometimes lacking. I feel like a lot of times with young folks, it is about sometimes ticking that box, which is understandable. Like,
Right.
I understand that we're not always going to get, maybe it's not going to be a voting seat at a table, or whatnot. But it starts even at the university level, right? Like, I think that's one of the things where when you consistently are in the spaces, at the university, you're the one paying the tuition. You're the one, but also experiencing the shortcomings of the institutions. And so I think a lot of times when it comes to the institutional spaces, there is a lack of feeling heard when, it's not just you, but you're also sharing what your family's experiencing. Like, it's not just about my experience alone. It's about what my dad and my mom are feeling, or what my cousins down the street are experiencing too. So it's not just about, hey, you need to listen to what a 25-year-old is saying. It's like, I'm the one that's able to come to the table right now to speak for my community or my family. And these are the things that are happening. But yeah, it's about the action afterwards, after the acknowledgement. Yeah.
So we got a lot of policymakers that listen to the podcast, or at least tell me they listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
So you got a chance. What's one thing you would say that we need to focus on?
Well, it's been, again, as I said several times, healthcare is a huge concern. I'm at the age right now as a small business owner who's 25 and turns 26 this year. That's a big moment for me.
Yeah.
Where I'm having to make decisions about, one, am I going to continue being a small business owner? And what kind of healthcare plan options are there for small business owners like myself?
So were you on the exchange before?
So I'm on my parents' healthcare. Yeah. So
it used to be that you could come off that, and thank goodness for the Affordable Care Act and the ability to stay on that healthcare for until you're 26. And the exchange used to be that step, and especially small businesses that don't have enough employees to qualify for one of these major plans.
Yes.
But as you all know, we had Congress that extended a tax cut for the wealthy,
Yes.
but wouldn't extend a tax credit for small business owners.
Yes. So, and that you speak directly to it. We're not speaking as though none of these things have been part of the conversation before. We've taken major steps back, and not necessarily us that are making those decisions, but that's a big concern of mine. I hurt my knee this week, so I came in here on crutches because I'm like, what's a good thing to happen now and not 6 months from now, where my healthcare situation might be unclear.
Right.
And so I think that's something that a lot of 20-something-year-olds, especially as affordability becomes more and more of a question, when we don't necessarily have all the things that, my parents, I'm at the age now where I'm older than my parents were when they had both me and my sister. They owned a home, and they, were starting a family. So I think those are all big conversations. For sure.
On the healthcare front, I think about the challenge that you face, and the fact that it doesn't have to be that way. That there are different options, and whether that's the federal government doing what they ought to do, whether that's the state stepping in. I propose that we put the funding in to help our small businesses be able to afford health care. But I have a new worry. And it's not just that people fully fall off health care, but they move to cheaper plans where they're gambling with their health. But if they gamble wrong, they end up in an even worse place.
Absolutely. The copays are like, those aren't jokes. Like, it really is a big concern. And I'm fortunate my dad is a public school teacher, so I went to the doctor this week. It's a strong healthcare plan that he has access to, and I have access to an extension. It definitely is something to consider, and something that, yes, I would plead to many of the lawmakers, whether it's here in Kentucky or elsewhere, to make sure that they're keeping in mind the 26-year-old folks that are about to be 26-year-old folks that don't necessarily want to have to be attached to that 9 to 5 life of a bigger corporation. We want to have the opportunity to innovate and lead in our own way. So
Yeah. I have a long list
Okay.
of things
Give me just a couple.
that I would definitely want to talk about. But I would say a livable wage. Our minimum wage has not changed.
Right.
Probably since I was in elementary school.
I think that's right.
That we've had, is it
It
$7.25?
is.
It's not a livable
To
wage.
give you an idea, when I was 16, it was 5.25.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
you know, what, $2 different
Mm-hmm.
from 1990, whatever year?
Right. And so the early 2000s. So I would say a livable wage. As we've been talking about, like, can't even think about wanting to own a home, right? Can't even, like, I'm getting married next year, right? So then the next,
Congratulations.
thank you. So the next step is children, but you think about children, that's a bill, when you think about it. And I hate to have to like think about things that way, but we're not living in an affordable lifestyle. And I lucked out getting a career that is able to pay me more than, the average person is making right now. But it's still like, there's such a gap, like there's things that I thought that now working full time again that I would be able to pay for, and I can't. And I'm still like, okay, I have to give myself grace in terms of being able to afford and to save and to invest in all of these things. But somebody that's living off of 725 is wondering, if their lights are going to stay on, or if they're going to be able to pay for groceries or take care of their children. And so, yeah, just thinking about all of the people across Kentucky, and the ways that we are living in the different lifestyles and communities that we need money. Things are getting more expensive, and raising the minimum wage is going to be, one step closer to allowing people to live.
No, I think that's important. And one of my goals is to connect people to better wages that are out there, but they might not know about. So last year, we hit our highest average incentivized wage for a new job ever. It was almost $30 an hour.
Wow.
But how do I make sure that that person working minimum wage
Mm-hmm.
can get that job?
Right.
The other thing, and somebody explained it to me this way, is that, okay, let's say somebody isn't making $7.25. Let's say they're making $15.
Mm-hmm.
If the minimum wage is raised $5, that person making $15 will make $20.
Right.
So hopefully it
Yeah,
lifts
hopefully.
everybody up.
One question I've got is that we talked a lot about, the economics, what's happening around us, but I'm just kind of curious to hear what the emotional take is. When you turn on the news in the morning and you see what's happening, what is the feeling that hits you on most days?
Yeah. I mean, exhausted is one word. I think, especially working in the political field, there's not really release necessarily.
There's not, you can't turn it off.
Exactly. I mean, and it's part of my job as well, as to be educated on the issues and to be in tune with what communities are feeling and saying. And so I think there is no real release from it. And it's not like it's just, nonsensical information that's being thrown. It's important things that are happening, impacting thousands of millions of people around the world. And so it's just the lack of intention or the lack of compassion that's behind a lot of the actions. A lot of it is very intentional. And so it's not as though it's just a fleeting consequence. There's an active movement behind it too, which I think adds to the weight of it as well. And so one piece is making sure that there are, whether it's your colleagues, your friends, your family, or your community members that are aligned with you, and understanding where those folks are is helpful. So you don't feel as alone. And I think that's what, again, going back to social media, that's helpful, but it can also make you feel very isolated at times too. And so, yeah, in a lot of ways exhausted, because I feel like there hasn't really been a release, but, still hopeful that, because I do know there's people around me that are aligned.
And that's where I want to turn and give you the final word.
Yeah.
If that's the feel, leave our listeners with the hope. What are you hopeful about?
I'm hopeful that what we're seeing in office is not what we're seeing in community. That community is stepping up, community is filling in the gap, community is providing and loving and supporting each other in any way that they can. We saw that with them stopping food stamps, how many people were able to come in and
First president
provide.
ever to stop that during a shutdown.
I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, disappointed, but not surprised. But even like into myself, I give away prom dresses for free every year. And that's a labor of love that I do all year long. So you'll probably see me with 2 or 3 prom dresses in my back
I've
seat.
seen you on the news with them.
Yeah, so I try to get everywhere that I can. But also just knowing that the exhaustion that I may feel or the overwhelmness that I may feel is stopping someone else from having those same emotions about something that for a lot of our youth is something so big for them, right? And so that's the hope that community will continue to fill in the gaps, that we will get the people in office that will continue to listen. We appreciate you for giving us the platform as young professionals to be able to speak to a wider audience than we usually are, susceptible to. And so that's the hope that we will, as the American people, will carry on what it means to actually be a U.S. citizen, what it means to actually be God-fearing, and what it means to love each other and continue to take care of each other. And that it's going to take all of us, and it's not going to happen overnight, but we have to keep working at it. We have to keep going, even if it feels like, we take a couple steps backwards. One of my favorite quotes is that even the steps backwards are a part of the dance. And so just keep dancing, keep moving, because they can't hit you if you're moving.
I can't say it any better. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Andy Beshear Podcast. It has been a heavy couple weeks of news, and we've been so busy with our prime for 2026, we have not had an opportunity for a conversation with the Johns. So today, we've got John McConnell and John Rabinowitz back with us. As a reminder, we started this podcast to help folks cope with the news that seems to hit you minute after minute after minute, to try to talk through some of the chaos and hopefully leave our listeners feeling a little more informed, maybe a little bit lighter, to have that conversation among friends. So, gentlemen, we start today with the fact that we woke up on Saturday at war with Iran. We woke up and the president had authorized the United States, which has joined Israel, into significant attacks on the country. I think we are in the third wave of those attacks, and Iran is retaliating. I think we've got 6 U.S. soldiers dead, a number of people in Israel and some of the other surrounding countries. We have some dead Iranian children, too, because there's an elementary school next to one of the targets. The president has yet to make his case to the American people, despite the State of the Union just being a couple days before, much less make it to Congress. So at this stage in it, how are you all feeling about this most recent conflict?
And they're calling this a war.
They're using those terms.
They're not beating around the bush about this. And when they start talking about, they think it may take 4 or 5 weeks, but we're there as long as we need to be. And from what I've seen, I haven't seen anywhere that ground troops have been ruled out. So, I mean,
and to be clear, this is Monday that we're filming this. It's going to come out, or taping, it's going to come out on Thursday, and a lot changes very quickly.
I think Secretary Rubio is speaking with legislators today to update on what's going on. But I'll tell you, my take is, let me step back and first say we're praying for the men and women overseas who are fighting for us.
Yeah,
right.
And I think we all agree that the U.S. military is second to none. Their ability to execute a mission is incredible. The question is, should they be on that mission?
Yeah, so I'm torn on it a little bit. I understand the argument. Obviously, like, Congress's job is to make that declaration, and we have these international laws. I also go back to, I never want Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Agreed.
And I never want, I actually think it's such a repressive system that I'm very happy that the Ayatollah is no longer, personally me, is no longer in existence. I don't know when we would have had another opportunity to hit 49 leaders at once. I can't believe they were all together at one time. It shows you like the superiority of our you know, men and women in intelligence. But I think it had to happen. I understand the concerns. I just want to see what happens over time because, like you, I just don't know there's no clear end game, and I don't want us to be like Iraq.
I think we all agree on two things. Number one, that this regime, they're the bad guys. They sponsor terrorism. They are not just repressive, they have murdered a number of their citizens. And yes, they can never have nuclear capabilities. But remember, the last set of very limited attacks, the president said they had annihilated, was his term.
Yeah.
Any and all means for them to have nuclear weapons. Now, we questioned that at the time. This calls it further into question. But I think the president has to make the case to the American people who are tired of foreign conflicts. In fact, he's president in part because he promised not to get us involved in foreign conflicts. And the context is we're tired because it was many of our friends that were in Iraq and Afghanistan that came home with scars on the inside and the outside, years upon years upon years of those conflicts. And in a number of these foreign conflicts by this president, there doesn't seem to be the long-term plan. So originally, this president said it was for regime change, and that should be concerning for all of us because regime change takes time. It often takes troops on the ground. The idea that we could just drop bombs and shoot missiles and the Iranian people will rise up and somehow take back their country in an organized fashion, if that is the mission, then there's cause for concern.
Well, and that also would indicate that there was some type of a plan in place. Look what happened in Venezuela. And now all of a sudden we've taken out the leader of Iran. And we had some young professionals on earlier, and one comment they used when they turned the TV on now is exhausted. So now starting another war without a plan.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we're going to understand why, the urgency. I understand that they tried to negotiate or we're being told that there was some negotiations that fell through and basically our president was done with negotiating. I want to understand whether this was an imminent threat and like, what does that mean? I'm also very curious as to, so we give the Iranian people now a choice. Now they're going to decide, and how is that? Are we going to set up a democracy? I mean, I don't understand what our involvement in that will be.
The Iranian military is a part of the government in a way that maybe Americans, if they're not familiar with the country, don't fully grasp how tight the military is with this regime. And this regime has members in different towns and provinces. Religion is mixed into it. So regime change is a concern. Now, numerous times they've pulled that back and then they say it again. Yeah. I think the president had said 4 objectives at an event today, which he then, after the Medal of Honor, there is no Congressional Medal of Honor. He talked about this, and then he talked about the drapes in the ballroom. But he said he wanted to destroy their ballistic missiles,
Yes.
destroy the Navy, prevent them from having a nuclear weapon, and to prevent the funding of terrorism. All
You would agree with that?
all real reasons.
Yeah.
But remember, those last 2, preventing nuclear weapons and preventing the funding of terrorism, were pretty much the 2 stated reasons that we ended up with to get into Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yes.
Well, I think time will tell. I just hope it's not a prolonged war. And I guess they're sending more troops over there as we sit here today. So
There's
knows?
also the issue of capacity for our military, which people aren't talking about out loud. Munitions, given what we did in Venezuela. This is, in fact, the 8th time in 1 year that this president has used military force, which also raises questions about, is it about an impending need right now? Or do we simply have a president that uses force first and then thinks about the need or justification later, I'm concerned that that's it.
And when we talk about what this does to our country as well, I mean, right now we're looking at inflation still going with what it is, the cost of living being so high.
Energy costs.
And now all of a sudden, I mean, what is this going to do to the prices of gas?
Both natural gas and gasoline.
Yes.
Were you surprised that in Iran's counterattack that they attacked some of the countries in the Middle East? And my understanding is also maybe attacked some of our bases in Europe.
I believe they were trying to attack our bases in the Middle East and underestimated how that would be viewed by the countries that those bases are in. I think that Iran thought that those countries would sympathize with them, but if you're shooting missiles through somebody's country where it could just as easily hit their citizens, well, I think they got that response wrong.
Sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of our president, who stayed up for the entire State of the Union address, the longest in history, I think in, an hour and 48 minutes.
Yep.
What are your thoughts, John?
Well, I did not stay up and watch the entire hour and 48 minutes. I think one thing I did take away from it is that he just still doesn't understand where most American people are at. And I'll get Andy's feedback when he says the golden age of America is right now.
The golden age of our economy, even, he talked about.
Yes.
First, it was way too long. I got through an hour and 10 minutes. It's 10:30. I made my kids go to bed. Came back in. It was still going. May or may not have fallen asleep. Woken back up and then hit the rewind to get the end. So way too long. And if it's way too long for me in this job and I'm trying to watch, it's way too long for the American people. But the second, it was just detached from reality. Saying we were in the golden age of the American economy, like he had, what did he previously say? Won affordability. Like it was a game and he'd won it when the American people are still hurting. And then he had the nerve to say he protected Medicaid when his big ugly bill is the most severe cut to Medicaid in history. It's going to close rural hospitals. People are going to have to drive, women are going to have to drive hours just to give birth. So I'd say long and entirely detached from reality. Last thing I'd say is it's an opportunity to talk to the American people or to fight with people inside the chamber. And he chose fighting inside the chamber.
I will say, though, I am not a fan of, now this could be at any State of the Union, but legislators from the other side of the aisle standing up, protesting, making a scene. I know it's their right, but I am totally against it. I think it's totally inappropriate.
So I give the State of the Commonwealth every year, and we have a lot of Republican legislators that just don't come. And people could say, wait, this is part of their job. The governor gives this speech to legislators and others every year. If they choose not to come, that's okay. It just sounds like there's more applause because we have more people there. So I don't take it personally, but disruptions, I agree, should not happen. But you also shouldn't have a gimmick where you try to make one side or the other stand up or not stand up, and then it ends up in a commercial 3 days later.
I'll tell you a highlight, though. It was pretty cool seeing the U.S. hockey team. They're being honored.
Their energy was, I think, what made it. You could tell it was a stunt, but they got out, and people were so excited about that win.
Yep. And one thing I did notice is Trump, again, did not acknowledge what tariffs have done to this country or still continue to do. But when we talk about exports, Kentucky's doing well.
In spite of this president and his tariff policy, Kentucky's economy continues to surge. Two pieces of recent news. We broke our all-time exports record for the third straight year, over $50 billion of goods from Kentucky being sold all over the world. That makes us global now here in the Commonwealth. And today, we just learned that for the sixth straight year, every year since I've been governor, we have been top 5 in economic development per capita in the country. So that we were 5th this year. That continues a huge winning streak. So it means we've had the best year for wages, best years for new jobs, best years for exports. It's pretty exciting. When other states are falling into recession, we're still growing.
You know, that's, actually pretty incredible news. And we've talked about this a little earlier, but I think what our listeners might be really surprised by, this is Kentucky. At least you would think our main export is what? Bourbon, right?
Mm-hmm.
What ended up being our top export this year.
Oh, it's been aerospace for a while.
That's crazy.
And auto is, I think, number 3. So you look at the top 5, you also have pharmaceuticals. And so it's exciting that we are a part of this global economy, and we keep bringing in business. We've been reshoring since before President Biden. And certainly we've continued reshoring, even though Trump's tariffs make it more difficult. They don't induce it, they make it more expensive.
So these trips overseas seem to be working.
Yes, absolutely. We can trace every single one of these trips to jobs. So some listeners might not know our legislators are trying to attack these trips, calling them a vacation. I go from one conference room to another. Now, when we were in Germany for one trip, we drove 800 miles. And unfortunately, the company calls itself a limousine service. We were in a van. We were in a van driving in Germany from one conference room to another, but hundreds of jobs came out of it. And so it's exciting when you see those meetings, the respect that you've showed to the international CEO by going to their headquarters bear fruit. I will never forget being in London, making a pitch towards a company that may make $1 billion plus investment. And you know what the CEO said to me? He said, that seat you're sitting in, the governor of Virginia was there next week. You can't win if you're not in the game.
Yeah, love that.
Well, when we talk about exports and new things upcoming, there's some book I've heard about we're trying to get.
You know, John,
Can you pre-order this thing?
Well, it gives me grief about promoting the Amston Bourbon Bar in Amston Station. But now,
For Sales, Kentucky.
now just listen to this new book. What is this?
Yes.
My new book, Go and Do Likewise, is available for pre-order wherever you buy your books. It's a book about reclaiming faith for good. We see faith being used far too often to harm people instead of to help people. Go and do likewise are the last words of the parable of the Good Samaritan, because it's not a story, it's an instruction. Jesus tells this amazing story about 2 people that are taught to hate each other. They probably look different, pray different, they're probably different ethnicities. Everything about them is different, yet they are the 2 that Jesus chooses to teach us how to be a good neighbor, how to lift each other up. But at the end, he looks at the crowd he's talking to, and he says, now go and do likewise. So my hope is the book can help bring us together. It's that idea that we're supposed to care about each other. We're supposed to be people of faith or Americans before Democrats and Republicans. And I just think that thinking about it in that way, and there's a parable of the Good Samaritan in every religion in one way or another, is maybe a way that we bridge this divide.
And how would someone like me go about pre-ordering this book? What's the best route?
So if I give one route, the other routes get upset.
Okay.
But you can get online, type in Andy Beshear, Go and Do Likewise, and you will have multiple different places that you can make the order from. Or if you want to do a big pre-order, you can always reach out through the links of my personal handles, which is at Andy Beshear KY, and we can make that happen.
Perfect. I do have one question about the book. Just not going to give away anything here since it's still on pre-order, not out yet. As you wrote this, of course, you're having to look back and do reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So really, as you reflected back in this, what's one thing that caught you in that reflection when you were looking back?
Yeah, I learned that I bury my trauma deep. There are a lot of tough chapters. There's people suffering after tornadoes and floods. I talk about my friend Tommy Elliott. We lost in a mass shooting, and how I was the one who called his wife, Mary Ann, to tell her because no one else would. And it takes too long to wait for that DNA test to come back. But writing about the pandemic was really hard. And I took every death personally, and they're about 21,000 if you go up today. And to be the person that receives that death list every day and then has to read it, it sticks with you. But like every chapter, what sticks with me is how people responded. You know, we talked about how much grief and loss there was as we were going through it. We probably should still be talking about that today. But remember what we did when we said people need to see that we care about them? We asked them to put up green lights. And this whole state lit up green in a way that I never expected. It was our universities, our businesses, but people were painting the lights on their porch green so that that person who lost somebody at a time when you couldn't come over and hug on them could just drive around alone or with their spouse or kids in their car, and they could see how much the rest of the state loves them.
Serious therapy.
Yeah, it was significant therapy, but I'm glad I did it. I think when you work through all of it, it helps you, but it also reminded me of things that I hope can help me in the future. If we can get through a pandemic the way we did, surely we can bridge this divide. Especially in the early parts of the pandemic, we didn't care Democrat or Republican. We were all living for each other. We were all trying to help each other. And as much cruelty as we see out of this current administration, we saw the best of love and humanity and empathy early on in that pandemic. I think we can turn that on again. And that's one goal of the book. So just small goals coming out.
Small goals.
So again, we can pre-order now, but it comes out when?
September 22nd. But pre-order now. We're really excited about what we've seen thus far. It's off to a really great start. I'm sure we'll have a book tour later in September. I look forward to seeing people all over the country.